RMS Lancastria was a British Cunard liner commandeered by the UK government for war. She was sunk on 17 June 1940 during World War II with at least 4,000 fatalities, and possibly a great many more. It is the greatest ever loss of life in the sinking of a single British ship, claiming more lives than the combined losses of the RMS Titanic and RMS Lusitania. It had also the highest death toll for UK forces in a single engagement in the whole of World War II. Career. The ship was launched in 1920 as Tirrenia by William Beardmore and Company of Glasgow on the River Clyde for Anchor Line, a subsidiary of Cunard. She was the sister ship of RMS Commemorative that Beardmore's had built for the same customer the previous year. Tirrenia was 16,243 gross register tons, 578 foot long, and could carry 2,200 passengers in 3 classes. She made her maiden voyage, Glasgow, Quebec City, Montreal, on 19 June 1922. In 1924 she was refitted for 2 classes and renamed Lancastria, after passengers complained that they could not properly pronounce Tirrenia. She sailed scheduled routes between Liverpool and New York until 1932, and was then used as a cruise ship in the Mediterranean and Northern Europe. On 10 October 1932 Lancastria rescued the crew of the Belgian cargo ship Shell-listed, which had been abandoned in a sinking condition in the Bay of Biscay. In 1934 the Catholic Boy Scouts of Ireland chartered the Lancastria for a pilgrimage to Rome. With the outbreak of the Second World War she carried cargo, and was then requisitioned in April 1940 as a troop ship, becoming the HMT Lancastria. She was first used to assist in the evacuation of troops from Norway, the sinking and its aftermath. She was sunk off the French port of Saint-Nazaire while taking part in Operation Ariel, the evacuation of British nationals and troops from France, 2 weeks after the Dunkirk evacuation. After a short overhaul, she left Liverpool on 14 June under Captain Rudolph Sharp and arrived in the mouth of the Loire estuary on 16 June. She anchored 11 miles southwest of Saint-Nazaire. By the mid-afternoon of 17 June she had embarked an unknown number of civilian refugees, line of communication troops and RAF personnel. The ship's official capacity was 2,200 including the 375-man crew. Captain Sharp had been instructed by the Royal Navy to load as many men as possible without regard to the limits set down under international law. At 13:50, during an air raid, the nearby Orensay, a 20,000-ton Orient liner, was hit on the bridge by a German bomb. Lancastria was free to depart and the captain of the British destroyer HMS Havelock advised her to do so, but without a destroyer escort as defense against possible submarine attack. Sharp decided to wait. A fresh air raid began before 1600. Lancastria was bombed at 1548 by Junkers Ju-88 aircraft from 2 Gruppe Kampfgeschwader 30. 3 direct hits caused the ship to list first to starboard then to port. She rolled over and sank within 20 minutes. Over 1,400 tons of fuel oil leaked into the sea and was set partially on fire. Many drowned, were choked by the oil, or were shot by strafing German aircraft. Survivors were taken aboard other evacuation vessels, the trawler Cambridgeshire rescuing 900. There were 2,447 survivors, of whom about 100 were still alive in 2011. Many families of the dead knew only that they died with the British Expeditionary Force. The death toll accounted for roughly a third of the total losses of the BEF in France. She sank around 5 nmi south of Chemoulin Point in the Charpentier Roads, around 9 nmi from Saint-Nazaire. The Lancastria Association names 1,738 people known to have been killed. Rudolf Sharp survived the sinking and went on to command the RMS Lancastria, losing his life on 12 September 1942 when that ship was torpedoed and sunk off West Africa. Availability of information. The immense loss of life was such that the British government suppressed news of the disaster through the D-Notice system, but the story was broken by the Press Association on 25 July, in the United States by the New York Times, and in Britain by the Scotsman on 26 July, more than 5 weeks after the sinking. Other British newspapers then covered the story, including the Daily Herald, which carried the story on its front page, and Sunday Express on 4 August. The latter included a photograph of the capsized ship with her upturned hull lined with men under the headline, "Last Moments of the Greatest Sea Tragedy of All Time." But the full story of the Lancastria never came out, as part of the government-ordered cover-up. Survivors and the crews of the ships that had gone to the aid of Lancastria did not at the time publicly discuss the disaster. In July 2007, another request for documents held by the Ministry of Defence related to the sinking was rejected by the British government. The Lancastria Association of Scotland made a further request in 2009. They were told that release under the FOIA would not be given because of several exemptions. In the face of continued campaigning by relatives, the MOD stated in 2015 that all known documents had long been released through the National Archives. Status of the wreck. The British government has refused to make the site a war grave under the Protection of Military Remains Act 1986, although documents obtained under Freedom of Information legislation show that it could be done. Early in the 21st century, the French government placed an exclusion zone around the wreck site. The Lancastria Association of Scotland began a campaign in 2005 to secure greater recognition for the loss of life aboard Lancastria and the acknowledgement of the endurance of survivors that day. It petitioned Downing Street to have the wreck site designated an official maritime war grave. The British government did not do so as it was within French territorial waters, outside the jurisdiction of the Act. The campaign received support from MPs, Lords, MEPs and MSPs from all parties, but the MOD said that such a move would be purely symbolic and have no effect. In 2006, 14 additional wrecks sunk at the Battle of Jutland were designated as war graves, but the Lancastria was not. The MOD stated in 2015 that, as the French government has provided an appropriate level of protection to the Lancastria through French law and it is formally considered a military maritime grave by the MOD, we believe that the wreck has the formal status and protection it deserves. Remembrance. All service personnel killed during the Second World War are recorded by the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, and were known that they lost their lives on the Lancastria. 1,816 burials are recorded, over 400 of them in France. Survivors and Relatives Associations. After the war, the Lancastria Survivors Association was founded by Major Peter Petty, but this lapsed on his death in 1969. It reformed in 1981 as the HMT Lancastria Association and continues the tradition of a parade and remembrance service at the Church of St. Catherine, Cree in the City of London, where there is a memorial stained glass window. The Lancastria Association of Scotland was formed in 2005 and holds its annual service at St George's West Church in Edinburgh. The Lancastria Association of Scotland has members throughout the UK, France and the rest of Europe, as well as members in North America, Australia, South Africa and New Zealand. It also organises the largest memorial service for the victims in the UK. The service, which is attended by survivors and relatives of both victims and survivors, together with representatives of the French and Scottish governments and a number of veterans organisations, and is held on the Saturday closest to the anniversary of the 17th of June each year at St. George's West Church, Edinburgh. In 2005 and 2007, the association held a special exhibition at the Scottish Parliament to highlight the loss. MSPs also signed a special hand-bound Book of Remembrance. The association maintains the largest online archive of Lancastrian material on the Internet. The website received over 250,000 hits in 2007. In 2007, the association began a petition to the Scottish Parliament, calling for a special commemorative medal to be commissioned and awarded to all those who were aboard the ship that day. In February 2008, the Scottish Government confirmed it would present the medal to all those who were aboard the Lancastria that day. In December 2007, following a debate in the Scottish Parliament, the Scottish Government said it had held talks with the British government to try and persuade them to introduce a commemorative medal as a symbol of official recognition and acknowledgement for all those who had been aboard Lancastria. The MOD rejected that proposal in January 2008 and said they had no plans to commemorate the disaster. In June 2010, to mark the 70th anniversary of the sinking, special ceremonies and services of remembrance were held in Edinburgh and St. Nazaire. As the 100th anniversary of the Titanic sinking took place in 2012, fresh calls were made for official recognition by the UK government of Britain's worst ever maritime disaster, the loss of the Lancastria. Official recognition on the 12th of June 2008, at a ceremony at the Scottish Parliament. First Minister of Scotland Alex Salmond presented the first batch of medals to survivors and relatives of victims and survivors, the HMT Lancastria Commemorative Medal, which represents official Scottish Government recognition of the Lancastria disaster. 150 survivors and relatives gathered from across the UK and Ireland for this historic event. The medal was designed by Mark Hurst, grandson of Lancastria survivor Walter Hurst. The inscription on the rear of the medal reads, "In recognition of the ultimate sacrifice of the 4,000 victims of Britain's worst ever maritime disaster and the endurance of survivors, we will remember them." The front of the medal depicts the Lancastria with the text HMT Lancastria, the 17th of June 1940. The medal ribbon has a grey background with a red and black central stripe, representative of the ship's wartime and merchant marine colours. Hundreds of medals have been issued to survivors and relatives across the world, according to official guidance issued by the Scottish Government. Medal recipients are permitted to wear the medal in public along with their other campaign medals. The MOD continues to refuse to officially commemorate the victims of the Lancastria or the survivors who endured that day. The medal is subject to formal application and open to all survivors who were aboard the Lancastria on the 17th of June 1940. Relatives of victims are also eligible to claim for the medal, so long as they can provide supporting evidence that their relative was aboard the ship. An estimated 400 Scots were amongst the 4,000 killed when the Lancastria was attacked and sunk. The Scottish Government decided to proceed in light of the unique scale of the tragedy and because successive British governments refused to commemorate the disaster. Memorials. A memorial on the seafront at St. Nazaire was unveiled on the 17th of June 1988. In proud memory of more than 4,000 who died and in commemoration of the people of St. Nazaire and surrounding districts who saved many lives, tended wounded and gave a Christian burial to victims. Lancastria is represented at the National Memorial Arboretum in Staffordshire by a sessile oak tree and a plaque. St. Catherine Cree Church in the City of London has a memorial window to Lancastria. It also has a model of the ship in a glass case and the ship's bell is also in the church. In October 2011, the Lancastria Association of Scotland has erected a memorial to the victims on the site where the ship was built. The former Dalmuir shipyard at Clydebank, Glasgow, now the grounds of the Golden Jubilee Hospital. In September 2013, a plaque was unveiled at Liverpool's Pierhead by Lord Mayor Gary Miller commemorating the loss of the ship.